So a new lawsuit just dropped. We gotta get into this. Apparently, Drake is suing Universal Music Group, a label that also puts out his albums. He's suing them for business misconduct related to the release and distribution and promotion of his rival Kendrick Lamar, and specifically the song "Not Like Us." There's an article here I found that kind of goes into it. Drake's Frozen Moments LLC has issued a new legal filing in New York court accusing Universal Music Group and Spotify of illegally boosting streams of Kendrick Lamar's Grammy nominated diss track. More on the Grammy nominated part later. I think that's important. By allegedly using bots, undisclosed payments, and biased recommendations, according to court documents viewed by Pitchfork, UMG did not rely on chance or even ordinary business practices, wrote attorneys for the Canadian rappers company. It instead launched a campaign to manipulate and saturate the streaming services and airwaves. Drake's attorneys accuse UMG of violating the Racketeer Influencing Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO. Interesting for a rapper to be filing a RICO charge rather than receiving one. That tends to be how rappers engage with the RICO filings. And that's interesting too, because RICOs are usually associated with snitches. Because the way the RICOs work is that an organization has to be found to be engaging in criminal acts, and usually the way you get that is by somebody in the organization saying that the organization is a criminal enterprise. Famously, that happened with Gunna for YSL, and also with Tekashi 6ix9ine. So interesting that Drake finds himself on the side of the law when it comes to a RICO investigation. Implementing deceptive pay-to-play business practices and using false advertising under New York state law. In court documents, his attorneys claim they tried to meet and confer with UMG for the past several months, but the label declined to enter into substantive negotiations and instead allegedly insisted that they take it up with Lamar directly. They said, "Don't talk to us, talk to him," even though we're the label that puts you both out, and you're mad at us for the things that we did for the song for your label mate, your roster pal, your industry buddy, Kendrick Lamar. In their pre-action petition, it is important to note this is not completely a legal, like a lawsuit being filed. This is a pre-action, which usually happens in advance of a lawsuit being filed. Drake's lawyers seek countless documents from UMG and Spotify, including proof of payment of reduced licensing fees provided to the streaming platforms in exchange for promoting Not Like Us, and the identities of third parties that UMG allegedly hired to use bots to increase streams of the song or music video. At one point in the legal documents, Drake's lawyers claim Spotify recommended Not Like Us to users who searched for unrelated songs and artists as a result of UMG's reduced licensing fees. So what the lawsuit is saying there, or the pre-filing is saying there, is that because UMG offered reduced rates for Not Like Us, it incentivized Spotify to prioritize showing Not Like Us as a search result, even when people search for unrelated things, because Spotify gets to keep more of the money for a stream of that song, more of the rest of the pennies, because us artists, we only get a fraction of a penny anyway. But the rest of the money, which is the lion's share, which usually goes to the label, they took less in order for Spotify to promote the song more, says the pre-file documents. And that a UMG employee paid an independent radio promoter to transfer those payments to radio stations who aired the song, and the label paid influencers to promote the song on social media. A notably specific claim Drake's lawyers make in these documents is that UMG paid Apple Inc. to have Siri purposely misdirect users to Not Like Us when they asked Siri to play Drake's 2021 album, Certified Lover Boy. Not Like Us includes the infamous lyric and allegation Certified Lover Boy, certified PDF file. I think that might be the most ridiculous thing in here, is that that there is an amount of money that Universal Music Group could pay Apple to tell its coding people to redirect Siri to play Not Like Us when a user asks for Certified Lover Boy. That seems to be a bridge too far for me. A lot of this stuff to me strikes me as probably standard business practices in this modern iteration of the music business. And even traditionally, the thing about paying people to promote the song, that's just payola. That's as old as the music industry itself. I think there's language about bots and reduced rates and having things appearing in search results that it's a little bit newer, but this is a practice that goes back as old as time. But the thought that Universal could pay Apple to tell its coding staff to do a very particular tweak of how their very famously closed systems work. Apple is very secretive about its code. That seems sort of ridiculous to me, that Universal could pay Apple to do that, these two giant publicly owned companies, and that there wouldn't be any public evidence, or that everyone involved would keep that a secret. That's one of those ones that seems a little too far for me. The rest of this stuff, however, feels like pretty standard business practice, but more on that later too. We received information that UMG has been taking steps in an apparent effort to conceal its schemes, including but not limited to, by terminating employees associated with or perceived with having loyalty to Drake. So now, in this part of the legal filing, Drake is like, he's making Universal sound like they're like a corrupt government or something. Like it's like a witch hunt for Drake friends. Like they're just putting out memos or pulling employees into the office one at a time and saying, "Are you friends with Drake? If you are, you get out of here." I have a hard time imagining that that's the case too. I guess if there are people internal to UMG who were saying that it wasn't fair or something, well, even that would be weird because, like I'm saying, I think these are standard business practices for the most part. So the thought that someone would have an ethical problem with UMG using bots and using reduced distribution rates and all of these things, that I don't think any of this started with Not Like Us. I don't think they suddenly decided that they were going to try to cheat the system in brand new ways when Kendrick suddenly released the song in the middle of a battle. I wouldn't doubt that most of this stuff has been used for many UMG artists, but more on that later too. Universal responded saying the suggestion that UMG would do anything to undermine any of its artists is offensive and untrue. We employ the highest ethical practices in our marketing and promotional campaigns. That part. Matter of fact, let me I want you to get this face. It's like the Consequence. What's his name? The one rapper, the meme. I'll put it in here so you know what face I'm trying to make. The suggestion that UMG would do anything to undermine any of its artists is offensive and untrue. We employ the highest ethical practices in our marketing and promotional campaigns. No amount of contrived and absurd legal arguments in this pre-action submission can mask the fact that fans choose the music they want to hear. Wouldn't it be nice if people chose the music they want to hear? And I guess overwhelmingly they do, but it's not like they don't have help. So, big question in all of this. First question is, why would Drake do this? Because it seems like such an obvious L. It seems like walking into the L store, choosing the biggest L you could find, and walking out with it without even having them bag it. Just you want everybody to see you walking out holding the L. For you at the end of this rap battle, this going back and forth, in which you were completely engaged and writing your ass off and planning and, employing all of your avatars in the world to help you on your side, and then to come out of it suing the label that both of y'all are on in order to, I guess the question is why, right? And I have a couple ideas of why I think part of it has to do with the Grammy nominations. I think it's no coincidence that we had the Grammy nominations a couple weeks ago, and Drake's lawyer started preparing these filings. Um, the song "Not Like Us," I believe, is nominated for 5 Grammys, and I think that for Drake, someone who probably sees himself as having put the industry on his back for years, he probably is very offended that the industry has turned their back on him to this degree, to the point where they would nominate and potentially award a song that calls him out of his name 9 to 12 different ways. He probably doesn't feel good about that. And I think that in response to it, he's looking to sort of burn it all down. I think he's looking to burn it all down. What he's attempting to do here, in my opinion, is to delegitimize the song. And that's why, even though, again, giant L from the L store, the L factory outlet, he's walking out with a giant L. I do think there's one smart thing to this. I'm going to tell you this. This is how I very much believe this is going to go. This is going to be settled out of court. Now, again, it's not a full-blown lawsuit yet, but this is attempting to procure some of the documents that would lead to discovery. Discovery is a very important part of the legal system, where corporations specifically, when they're being sued by companies or individuals, they have to produce documents and really have some transparency about their business practices. And I guarantee you this will be settled out of court, because Universal does not want this to enter discovery. Because if this enters discovery, it will be fully shown that Universal does stuff like this all the time. Universal does not want its business practices put out there. And if this reaches discovery, it will be put out there. Now, it'll also be put out there that they do this stuff for Drake, and they have done this stuff for Drake. But you see in their response, they didn't say anything about that, because they don't want anybody thinking about that. They don't want anybody thinking that their favorites, the people who get promoted the hardest, the biggest artists in the world that people fully throw in their emotional and fan support to, that there might be any gamesmanship happening with any of that. They don't want that to happen. So when this is settled, Drake's camp will parade this around like it's a victory. And in their eyes, it will delegitimize the song for Grammy purposes. If UMG has to settle this out of court, then what does the Recording Academy look like giving awards to a song that Universal has basically admitted that they helped promote and boost in all of these ways that are unethical? If they settle out of court, they won't have a leg to stand on in making it look like they didn't do any of those things. So I do believe that that's what the purpose of this is for Drake. I believe that's why he would step out in a way that's so not hip hop, because I think a thing that we have to keep in mind, like, even though myself, I'm an artist, I'm also a consumer of this culture, obviously. When you get to artists that are operating on the scale that Drake and Kendrick are, this battle is not just between two people. This battle is about business as well. This battle is about business dominance. And UMG did a great job this summer of playing both sides of that. They did a fantastic job of playing both sides of that. Making money hand over fist. And it stands to reason that if they did any of this stuff for Kendrick, they were probably doing it for Drake's songs too. That only makes sense. Now, I did read elsewhere somewhere that Drake might be trying to get out of his deal with Universal, and that had something to do with him releasing the 100 gigs and all of that stuff that he initially put out there on his own. But then I think Universal did end up sort of getting behind and putting out and pushing it because they had the legal right to. But to my understanding, he is trying to get out of his deal. And if he's trying to get out of his deal, then that's more incentive for him to burn things down with Universal. Not to keep the status quo, not to really even be concerned with his business relationships there, but to burn it all down. Drake, I think, has less to lose if it comes out that some of those same business practices were used for his stuff, because he's not trying to posit himself as a moral or ethical authority on anything. So he's got less to lose. Matter of fact, it's probably better for him if all of the junk comes out. All of the mess comes out. Because then everybody's in the muck together and it's not just him alone like it probably has felt for the last 6 months. So he's filing these documents because he's well aware that the label does these things, and he's well aware the label does these things because they've probably done it for him. He's in a unique position to know what mess Universal is up to. And I think that gives him more of an incentive in this case to expose that, you know, the moral guy, the ethic guy hasn't been afraid to allow Universal to cheat on his behalf. I'm sure Drake's camp would consider that some semblance of victory. And in a year where they've lost so much, where Drake has had to go to the Raptors game and cuss at DeMar DeRozan under his breath and talk about how he would run up the walls like Spider-Man and snatch the jersey down, where he's taking L after L after L. I think they're strategically looking for W's that they can find. And I think a roundabout way to try to delegitimize Not Like Us before the Grammys, to try to make Universal look stupid, and to try to even things out in the court of public opinion. Do I think it'll work? No. But I do think the one smart thing is that this is definitely going to be settled out of court. And he can definitely try to make that W look as big as he can. We'll just see how that shakes out. What do y'all think about the lawsuit? The lawsuit that just dropped. Leave a comment. Let's talk about it. All stands welcome. Drake stands, Kendrick stands. Get into it. Let's have a rumble in the comments. Let's see who wins. Like and subscribe, homie, friend. It's free. Stop playing.